In today's episode, we are going to be talking to the Scouser of the team, Dan Callaghan.
I've certainly never thought I'll tailor my style to make someone like me work more.
Sometimes it is about measuring the opportunity versus the self-sacrifice.
It's either blue or red, right? And a lot of families are split. So I'm going to ask you, is your family split between blue and red? If so, how did it work out that you ended up being a red rather than a blue?
You're describing it like it's from the 60s and it only came out in Sweden.
What the did you just say?
So for the last year or however long time, I've been calling you Dan, I've been calling you Callie, I've been calling you head. I just want to know what you like to be referred to as. What is your preference? What do your friends call you? What do your family call you? Just so we can get it straight.
Dan's fine. Dan's fine, yeah. Callie, the only Callie is obviously short for Callaghan, which is me second name. So yeah, Dan's fine. Most of my mates call me Dan, unless they still refer to me as my old name. Which some of them do, which if they're watching this, you can stop doing it now.
Okay, well, that's awesome, Callie. Shall we carry on with the interview?
I like to call him the Scouse Jason Statham.
Oh, I like it. I was
going to go right said Fred, but, we'll just carry on.
Do you want to paint a little bit of a picture as to who you are then, Dan?
I'm an illustrator, artist, creative, whatever you want to call it. I've had an online store for about 2 years now, and before that I didn't really take it seriously, my artwork. It was more of just a hobby that I'd done, something that I'd done as a kid. I've always drawn. I don't know why I'm good at it. I've always just been able to do it. I think that's one of the questions I get asked the most when people see me art online. I say, have you always been able to do it? How do you do it? Like, I don't know, it just sort of happens. It's a talent, I guess. I'm from Liverpool, born and bred. I grew up in like a sort of central south part of Liverpool. Not a great place to live. Bit rough around the edges. I lived there till I was about 10. Just had a normal upbringing really up to that point. I was just footy mad, and in my spare time I was either drawing pictures or I was on the PlayStation 1. I was obsessed with those three things and those three things only when I was a kid, and you could arguably say that's predominantly what I'm obsessed with now still. From the age of 10, I sort of started moving house a lot. I think I moved like 7 or 8 times between the age of like 10 to 20. So proper I was never settled. I was never settled as a sort of teenager. I've always liked to do things on my own, if that makes sense. Like I've never really had a big group of people around me. I think because when I said I moved a lot, I went to school quite far away, so like I never had friends where we moved to in the area that I lived. My mates were in school, but they lived like miles away from me, so growing up I was always sort of on my own, moving to different places, and I just sort of prefer to do stuff that way now, I guess. I obviously went to school, done art in school. I didn't really get some stability in me life till I was 16, 17 really. Maybe even later. To be honest, when I actually moved out of my house and started living on my own, that's when I started to find out who I was really. The things that I like to do, started being myself more. I'd done art for GCSE and I'd got an A star in it, I think. And then in college, I just didn't have that. I didn't have the urge to do it because of the things that we were learning. It wasn't creative, and that's what I've always, like I said, I'm very I want to do things my own way, and that spills into me artistic ability as well. Like I always want to do it the way I want to do it. I don't want to be sort of led in any direction. Stubborn is probably the word that's used there, which a lot of people would probably attest to me being. But yeah, when I went to college, I dropped artwork, ended up going to uni to do business and finance, and then got my degree, and then left for the world of work. I didn't really pick up a pencil again until between the ages of 16 and about 24. So there's 8 good years of not drawing a single thing. Don't really know why. I think just because I was in my 20s and I'd done a bit of travelling, and I was going on holiday to IB for every year and with the lads, and I was just, when you're that age, you're just discovering alcohol and going out and
living life.
Yeah, I guess that's what it was. I didn't really have the time for a hobby at that time, which sounds mad to say now, because my life's full of hobbies now. Like every day I've got to do something. Everything that I do is almost a hobby. 2014 I picked up the pencil again. Done a few bits of pencil work and charcoal work, but it never really went anywhere until I started taking it seriously as a business. That's sort of in a nutshell me background, really. I guess there's a lot of stuff to go into, but we haven't got the time.
As somebody who, like, over a very short space of time, I've gone from being internet acquaintances to casual mates to now like pretty close friends because we talk all the time. So much of your life journey, like, it's so reflective of mine. Like, I always went to school really far away from where all of the people in school lived. From the age of like 3 to about 13, lived in about 8 different houses, but continued to be at the same school, so could never really pin down friends. So yeah, it's weird how much of that, and have a really small family and loads of people in my family who I don't talk to. So yeah. Weird how many similarities I see in your journey as I do mine.
Yeah, I think it's I think that happens a lot as well. I don't know anyone who's had the perfect upbringing. Do you know what I mean? There's very few people.
Certainly nobody interesting.
Yeah, certainly no one interesting. But yeah, it's just I think that is something that is a big part of my life. That sort of unsettledness. You know, I think even in the things that I do now, like even the way I've set my life up now, since I've been an adult and been able to work and being able to learn independently, the way I've set my life up now is for stability.
Yeah. Like
everything I do is to sort of be as a contingency plan for the worst case scenario, because I've had so many worst case scenarios in my teenage years that happened, that I'm now everything I do is like, if this happens randomly completely, I've got this to fall back on.
I think you're right. Like, I think a life of an upbringing of turmoil puts you in that position where like you both want security, but also like you just can deal with shit.
Yeah,
like stuff comes up, you're just like, that is nothing compared to what I've already been through, so yeah, bring it on.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that as well, to be honest with you.
There's not like two sides to me, but people who know me, like, I'm as optimistic and playful and silly as the next guy, but behind the scenes, I've set a lot of stuff up in my life to just have me together. So even though I'm very, if you just look at me on the surface, you'd be like, oh, he's a big daft, but you know, I know that I'm not. I think that sort of gives me the license to be a bit daft sometimes.
The one thing I wanted to say, which you said in just at the beginning, going back there, is that how stubborn you are, and that is the one thing I haven't noticed of you the whole time.
Yeah, same. Really? I was surprised by that.
Not once. Yeah. Whenever we discuss anything, I find that you're just open. You're open, and you're kind of you never take our opinion, or you never try and change it. If the group opinion is not what you kind of maybe put forward, you're always like, yeah, cool, let's go with that. So when you said that, like Yoni just said, I was really surprised that you said you were quite stubborn, because I've not found that with you once, not at all.
That's interesting. Do you know what, that I think the last 3 years, the last 4 years, I maybe haven't been. I've maybe grown up a lot. But I think if you were to speak to anyone who knew me 5 years ago, they'd say I'm a lot more stubborn than I am now. I think it's just with age, I guess. But like I said,
definitely
the background that I'm from, it sort of required me to have that. You know, I need to do it my way now for the good of my own life, really. But I think now I've been around for long enough to know how you need to act. Do you know what I mean?
Obviously, you're a massive Red.
Yes.
I kind of wanted to know how it works in terms of like how so it's either blue or red, right? And a lot of families are split. So I'm gonna ask you: is your family split between blue and red? If so, how did it work out that you ended up being a red rather than a blue?
Good question. Very good question. So all my current family now, like me nan, my uncle, my uncle's kids, my auntie, they're all Everton fans. Every single one of them is an Everton fan.
I feel very badly for them.
Yeah. And when I was a kid, me dad was a Liverpool fan. So obviously being in the house with me dad, that's just how I became a Liverpool fan. It wasn't through lack of trying from my uncle's part though. He used to buy me Everton kits and all that when I was a kid. Like Steven Gerrard, there's probably some pictures of me with an NEC Everton top somewhere.
You're a busy mate, isn't he?
Yeah, but we didn't have the internet back then, so I might have had a lucky escape on that one. But yeah, it was because me dad was a Red, and me family outside the house were Blues. So even though I've seen a lot of them, you know, every single day, and my dad used to take me to match and stuff like that when I was a kid. So, and all of my mates in the street at the time were Reds, I think, because in the city there's not many Everton fans. Like I've only got, in my group of mates, there's like eight main lads that I hang around with. One of them is an Everton fan, and it's been like that since I was born. So just going following the crowd, I guess.
One thing that was at the front of my mind, because obviously the three of us work together, we all work in really similar spheres, we all have online presences that a lot of people watching this will know for very similar reasons, but you're the only one out of us three Liverpool fans who is actually from the city. And do you think that makes a difference either with your audience or for you in terms of creating artwork based around the club? Do you think there's any particular resonance that it might have differently with Liverpool fans, given that you are a Scouser, or do you think that's not necessarily something people need to worry about?
Good question.
Thanks.
I think it resonates with the people from Liverpool who buy my work. But if you go through the last 500 orders I've had, probably less than 200 of them are people that live in Liverpool. So I don't think it's a defining difference if it does have an effect. But I think, you know, people who I've always sort of believed, people who like you more will be more interested in your products, and people who are like them. So I guess, yeah, it probably has something to do with it, with the people who are from the city. I don't think Liverpool fans from outside the city will feel that at all. I feel like mostly the people who are Liverpool fans who live here and see me, you know, I bump into so many people that I know from online while I'm on the train and when I'm going to work and when I'm in town. Like I met Courtney Neary on the train the other day. So yeah, just little situations like that, you know, I think it does make a difference, because when you can put an actual physical face to the name, yeah, I think that probably is advantageous. But like I said, the percentage of people who buy my work are all outside of Liverpool, and I mean like a high majority. Like if I get 100 orders, like honestly 20-30 of them might be from the city, the rest will be dotted about the UK and worldwide.
I would say my percentage is way lower. I would say if I get 100 orders, less than 10 would be from like the Merseyside area. Yeah. I think like I actually, and the reason I know that is because whenever I do see a customer pop up that's from Liverpool, I'm always like, oh, cool.
Yeah, I think that might be common. I think, just speaking from a Scouser point of view, and an age point of view, I think Liverpool Football Club is sort of more of a shrine to people outside the city, in my opinion. Like you don't get there's a lot of Scousers that will never ever wear a Liverpool themed top to the match ever.
Yeah.
Like most of my mates will never ever you'll never see them wearing a footy kit. You'll never see them wearing a Liverpool t-shirt unless they go to a final or something like that. So that's it's like a cool kind of thing, I guess. I don't know why it's there, but there's like a little bit of a stigma to it with Scousers.
Full kit.
Yeah, it's like full kit, and I think Liverpool sort of, with lads my age who've grown up my age, the way you dress has always been important until you get to a certain age and you don't give a shit. But yeah, I think there's more of a novelty to wearing stuff and collecting stuff and putting stuff on your walls when you're from outside the city.
Yeah.
I don't know what drives that, and I don't know if that's even true, but it's something that I've definitely noticed.
I suppose in some sense it makes it's quite logical though, isn't it? Because if you live in Liverpool, you're only ever going to be maximum a few miles from Anfield.
Yeah.
But to anybody else, they might be 5,000 miles from Anfield. So having something in their house that makes them feel that little bit closer, it's just not something that people in the city need.
Yeah, it could be that.
Yeah. But then I suppose, and then conversely, that just like to bring it back to us three specifically. If you live in Liverpool and you're just going about your daily business and you happen to be in the city centre, well then you're going to walk past a dozen places that sell Liverpool merch.
Yeah.
And if you live in London, Belfast, Manchester, Singapore, well that's not going to be as common. Yeah. So you're going to search out people online. So I guess there's lots of reasons, isn't there? But I think one of the reasons I wanted to ask that is because I think that I don't know of, certainly not many other British clubs that have such a link still between the culture of the city and the football club. It doesn't seem to be as prominent with any other club, especially none of the other massive clubs in the Premier League, where the two just feel so intrinsically linked. So I thought it was definitely important to get your perspective as the Scouser in the team when it comes to Untitled Artwork. Just coming back to what you were talking about previously then, which I think was you properly got back into illustrating, was it 2014?
2014, yeah.
So what was that inspired by? What made that thing just go off in your head? Yeah, I'm going to try this again.
Do you know what it was, right? Like I said, when I said about growing up, I was never settled. Sort of, my job career was similar. So in 2000, when I graduated in 2011, I want to say 2011, I graduated and couldn't get a job. So I went and got a job as a window cleaner, which was to this day the best job I've ever had. But that's another story.
Was the best boss you ever had your window cleaning boss?
No. I worked just with my mate on that. Right. But yeah, I went and was a window cleaner. Then I started in a call centre, and then I managed that call centre after a certain amount of time. And then I actually went from managing the call centre to starting my own business as a call centre. So I'd done it simultaneously. So I was like running between offices in Liverpool city centre, setting up a business and doing that at the same time. And then I sort of quit my full-time job and I was doing the business solely. But as soon as I'd done that, I got a load of free time. And when I got that free time, I started to travel. I had my own apartment. And with that came the inspiration, if you want to call it, to pick up a pencil again. I don't know what it was specifically on that day, but it was just from when I've got nothing to do, I always turn to the things that make me happy. And artwork is obviously something that was deep seated in me to do and produce.
I wanted to go back to the beginning and ask a question, because obviously your artwork style is vastly different to both mine and Yoni's, and it's very vibrant, very colourful. I wanted to know, have you always illustrated in that particular style, or that way of working from when you were young, or was that just something you picked up as you've kind of gone along?
I've always been obsessed with drawing faces, drawing portraits, and I think I don't know why, but I just like to see different expressions and make that my own. But I've always been, let's make this look exactly the same as what it looks like on the photo. That's what my style was for years, literally up until like 2016. I didn't start using colour until I bought an iPad, which was 2019. And the reason I bought that iPad was specifically to be able to create different art to what I've been creating, because I didn't think I could sell realistic pencil drawings. The reason I didn't think I could sell them is because everyone else can do the same thing 10 times better. So yeah, I didn't really pick up the digital stuff and the colour work until 2019. But it's that drive of how can you differentiate yourself from anyone else in that market. That's been at the forefront of everything that I've done since I left school. So that's why I create that type of work, and it evolves over time. Like if you look at me work, the first digital work I'd done in 2019, it's cartoons with like a comedic view on. Like I'd done a Trent Alexander-Arnold like in a ice cream van, handing you the ball, and it's like the ball's on ice cream. Like just stuff like that's creative, bit comedic, colourful, and it was just different. But then it went back to sort of realism and dynamic stuff. That's again colourful but more realistic. And then I was obsessed with movement for a while, and then I was obsessed with moments and movements, like Gerrard smashing it in the FA Cup final 2006. It's one of my favourite drawings that I've ever done. Zidane banging the volley in against Leverkusen in 2001, I want to say.
I think so,
yeah. A lot of my stuff and the way it develops is through just things and moments that I find really interesting and that I love to I don't know, aggrandise, if that's the word for it. And then from the realistic stuff, I watched the film called Spider-Man, which is Marvel.
Way,
I just
done.
love that you said that. Like you were going to be like, I watched this film, and then it was going to be like something nobody'd ever heard of, and you're like, I watched a film called Spider-Man.
No, but it was a cartoon or animated version of Spider-Man. It was called Into the Spider-Verse, I think it was called.
Yes,
I watched that.
Everybody knows that.
It's from like 2 years ago, mate.
2 years ago.
It's like the best one.
You're describing it like it's from the 60s, and it only came out in Sweden.
There's been about six. There's been about 6 Spider-Man movies since then with Tom Holland.
Yeah, but it's the only animated one, isn't it? It's the best.
It is
yes.
the best, yeah.
So I watched that, and I was at the point in me sort of art timeline where I'd been doing the realistic stuff for a few months. I'd had success selling it, but personally, I was bored. I was bored creating the same stuff, looking for the same moments. I wasn't inspired. But I watched that film, and I remember seeing the artwork in it, and I was blown away. I was just like, what? How did he get the contrast and the lighting and the colour difference so spot on in every scene, and it's so vibrant, and it told the story of each scene. It was based on the mood that you were in watching that scene, was based on the colour work that it had done, and I'd never seen a film like that before. So I came away from that film, and I had drawn a picture of, I think it might have been, I can't remember the first one I'd done. I think it might have been Israel Adesanya from the UFC. I think I'd drawn a picture of him, and instead of using the reference image as the guidelines to the colours and sampling the colours, I just used a fresh palette of what I think it should look like. And I had this film in the back of my mind, and then from there, it sort of just kicked off, really. And for the last 6 months, my style has been, like you said, very vibrant, very colourful. But it's still changing.
Yeah.
You know, I went through a stage of doing portrait work again a couple of months back with no lines on the face, with just colours. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, I guess it's just still evolving, and like I said, I'm always looking to move and try and do something different, and I think it's just my personality. I'm never settled, so yeah, that's where I am at the moment.
I think personally, like I've certainly taken some inspiration from like how bold and progressive your colour work is, because I think it is pretty unique, certainly within our community, as to I guess how individual it is, because I think a lot of, there's a lot of artists, we all have our distinct styles, but I think we all somewhat revolve around like the same central I guess approach in how we want to capture things. But I think yours is especially now, especially over the past couple of years, has become so different, and it's almost unstructured, but still it has that incredible ability to retain a likeness, or the iconography of the image. Like I think of your Jurgen Klopp portrait specifically from a couple of months ago, where it was so identifiable as to who it was, but at the same time had almost none of the typical architecture that you'd imagine somebody would. Yeah, this one. What I want to ask is, have you ever contemplated, I guess, having what some people might consider a more commercial style? And when I say commercial, I don't mean in terms of customers buying prints. I mean more like, I think a lot of brands often want something that has some link to realism to it. Have you ever thought about, has the thought ever crossed your mind to tailor your style to what you think other people might want?
So no, the answer's no, because I've always just drawn what I wanted to draw, and I've gone down the sales approach where I've contacted LFC, I've contacted the online shops that sell hundreds and thousands of products, I've contacted the high street stores that sell merchandise, and funnily enough, I've been knocked back so many times by them that every single knockback that I got was a chance for me to say, do you know what, I'm going to outsell you then. And I think the stubbornness I mentioned earlier that you might not have noticed, it might sort of be in a form of a rebellious drive to succeed now, that just goes under the surface. So yeah, I've certainly never thought I'll tailor my style to make someone like me work more. Even when I've had people specifically tell me, you need to do this that way for us to take you on as a client, I've refused to work. Yeah. And that's not to in a spiteful way. It's just I give up commission work because I didn't like having to do what people told me to do. Like I give up commission work a long time ago, about a year and a half ago now, and it was for the simple reason that every edit, everything that they're not happy with, every time they can tell you what you have done wrong and how to correct it, takes the creativity and the purity away from what I'm doing. And I think that sort of links to what you've said, Yoni. You're a purist, and I think I've got a bit of that in me as well. And maybe it's stubborn, maybe it's just the respect for the art form. But yeah, I never consider changing for anyone else. I think that you're absolutely you're absolutely right in having that virtue and that way to stand up for your own work. I think it just it's made me think of another point that I'd just like to make, and obviously see how you guys respond to it. But I think one thing I've never done, and I've thought about it, and maybe dip my toe in the water a little bit at times, and people have suggested why don't you do this design, because I think it'd sell really well. I never
make designs where the first thought, I never make artwork where the first thought is, oh, I think people will really buy this.
Yeah.
Like for me, I like the first reason I make something is because I'm like, oh fuck, this is going to be cool.
Yeah.
And then, you know, if I sell 2 or I sell 200, like to a certain extent, the gratification I get is the same. And I think, you know, you see a lot of people online making stuff to ride a train of hype or because they think it'll, you know, make them loads of money. And I think the cases where that is a success are very few. And I think usually it doesn't work out well. And I think part of that is like, you know, I think what I feel like what you just said is one of the most important things to do as an artist is stay true to yourself as an artist. Don't just look for the first way to commercialize what you're doing. And, you know, eventually enough people will get on board with what you create. And obviously like that has happened and is happening for you. A lot of people respond incredibly well to your work in both a commercial sense, buying prints, buying NFTs, and I think, you know, I think a lot of people, if you showed, you know, Joe Blogs off the street your artwork side by side to something that seemed much more generic, they would probably say, oh, I reckon the more generic piece is probably going to be the more successful.
Yeah.
But I bet they'd be wrong 9 times out of 10.
Potentially.
You know what? The only thing I would say to counter that slightly is I think from both of your perspective, both of you still have other jobs in the sense that, you know, you've still got an income from somewhere else.
It's true.
And I think that your opinion might slightly change, not massively, but it may slightly change when it's your only source of income. Now, I was just thinking back to what you just said, and to be honest with you, I don't think I think one time I've done something that I thought would sell. As you remember last season, back end of last season, when Alisson scored that header, and I saw a lot of artwork going around, and I thought, you know what, I'm actually going to sell this because I'm going to create this piece. Well, obviously because it's a, you know, iconic moment, but I thought I was going to create this piece and sell it because I think it will sell. But then again, at the same point, it was because obviously it's been a tough year for me as a, you know, as a freelancer, and you do at some points you have to think, you know, in that mindset, just because obviously at the same time it's your finances and where you're going. Not all the time, but there are times you need to think about it, and you know, you got to think about the future, and you do have to sell things because you got to put a roof over your head to you know, to a certain extent. So you know, like what Dan was saying about how he didn't like, you don't like change it, being told what to do, what to create to a certain extent. Yeah. But when you because you will leave your job at some point and you'll become freelance, and you know, when we explode, because of course we're going to explode, and as I told you before, I'm always reaching for the stars. You that may change at some point. Do you know what I mean? Your approach to that may change because obviously your goals and, you know, those types of things, and your, you know, they change. So you might look at it differently.
I think that there is an aspect of that. Like I've took on commercial work before in the last year. Do you know what I mean? Where like companies approach me about doing t-shirt designs for them, but at the very outset of the project, I've always been very clear that I want at least 90% of the creative control. If you want my product, I'm gonna present that product in the way that I want to present it, and we're gonna agree that up front. And you'd be surprised, or you won't be surprised, but people listening to this would be surprised that if they don't want your business, they'll just go elsewhere. But if they do, they'll make it work. You know, if they want that skill that you've got, you know, and I'm happy to be directed, but when it comes to like create a picture of Steven Gerrard smashing this ball into the top corner, I think I'm going to do that the way I want to do it, or essentially I don't want to do the project. Do you know what I mean? So there's limits to it, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Sometimes it is about measuring the opportunity versus the self-sacrifice. What is the value of that to you versus the creative sacrifice that you have to make first, and then you counter that with a big brand that you really want to be associated with, a company that you really want to be associated with, and then, you know, that's the thing that I guess you have to weigh up.
Absolutely. And you can stipulate that at the start. Like I said, I think it's down to, you know, being clear in communication and at the very start. I mean, even without saying too much about the project we're doing together, that relationship is brilliant because we've been given complete creative control. We've got a brief that we understand, and you know, the actual cosmetics of it will be done by us, but it's got everyone's input, and you know, you can find the right deal. You just gotta, like I said, stay true to yourself and know what you want. But at the same time, put your bills and your mortgage first. I
don't know what your guys' working processes are like, but I'll just share a little bit of insight on mine as to, like, I've, touch wood, as of yet have never wound up like delivering something to a client and them going, well, I want you to change A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, Y.
Yeah.
But you can leave Z. Like, that's never happened to me. And I like, but I share like process. I share the process with them a little bit. So like, I'll give them a sketch of an idea so that they can see where I'm heading. And then like, oh, here's an illustration I've done in the past, and this is like the finished style that I'm going to go for. And then I just kind of keep them involved a little bit, and I think that can often help oil those gears a little bit. So as you go, they're not massively surprised by anything at the end, because obviously, you know, as an illustrator, an artist of any kind, if you're going to put, you know, up to hundreds of hours into a project, like, you know, the project that the three of us are working on at the moment will be thousands of man hours by the time it's done. And you know, it's not even just about ruining your creative vision, but what you don't want is to have wasted all that time and for them to get to the end and go, I actually pictured something else.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that both as an artist and as a filmmaker that I always try and do is just bring them along for the ride. You know, they've got you involved because they like your work, they trust in you, they believe in your abilities as a creative person. You know, hold their hand a little bit and take them through the process.
I've got a question for you. Do you ever suffer from a creative block? And if you do, what do you do to overcome it?
I never suffer from a creative block once I've started the artwork. For me, I like, we were talking about motivations for doing artwork and you know, what are you trying to achieve with it? I go through stages. Like, I want to create moments. It's very moment based, my artwork anyway. That's usually me driving force motivation. So whenever I do feel like not creative, I'll watch videos of great sporting moments. Like, for me, sport's always been the inspiration for everything. Like, all my heroes have always been sport based. Like, the personalities that people have in sport, the Muhammad Ali's, you know, Steven Gerrard's personality off the pitch wasn't exactly vibrant, but on the pitch, there's no bigger personality than that. You know, so that's where my motivation always comes from. It takes me 2 seconds to find a video on YouTube of, even this weekend, watching the UFC, you know, I watched Pena just beat the greatest UFC woman of all time. Like, that for me is enough for me to go, I'm going to draw Pena this week. Do you know what I mean? So I don't ever have to look far for motivation. And, you know, even if it's non-sport related, like I'm drawing the Terminator at the moment. That's because I watched Terminator a couple of weeks ago, and I love the film. So, yeah, I don't suffer from the creative block in that sense, in terms of trying to find subjects to draw. Mm-hmm. The only time I ever do is when I'll be halfway through a drawing and it's not turning out very good, in my opinion, and sometimes I'll have to restart it all again. The colours don't match you know, when you were saying before, in my work, getting it to look like the person but using colours that don't fit into that face and aren't supposed to be there is really hard to do.
It must be.
So I do quite often come across a block in that sense, where I'm like, but what I'll do in that sense when that happens is I'll just put my iPad down and I'll just look at it again in an hour or tomorrow, and then I won't be scared to start again with whatever aspect of the drawing I'm doing, and 9 times out of 10 it'll always work out the way I wanted it originally. And And I don't really follow a path. I don't really say I want it to look like this when I start it. Do you know what I mean? I just, a lot of it's trial and error. Very rarely do I go, I want it to look exactly like this. I'll just go, well, I like this pose of the Terminator. I like the colour scheme of the grey. He's a robot. I like blue. I like, and I'll completely mix and match it until I'm happy with it. So, yeah, I do get them blocked sometimes, but I've got a wide variety of things that I can utilise to get over that block.
Although this is directed at Callie, like, I appreciate both of your answers. Like, what are you like in terms of your working habits when you're working on something? So personally, like, if I open Procreate on my iPad, which is what I do pretty much 100% of my illustrations in, I've always got probably between 4 and 6 like things that I'm actively working on, like at various stages of the process, whether that's like a commissioned piece of work, a personal piece of work, various personal pieces of work. There's always stuff that like is at different stages, because what I like to do, similar, like, so like Callie just said, he'll just step away from it for an hour or overnight or whatever. Like, I'll just switch to a different illustration and just crack on with that for 20 minutes. Like, are you guys working on one thing at a time? Do you have several pieces on the go, or, you know, what's it like for you? And obviously go to Callie first, because this is actually his episode, despite it maybe feeling like we're all just chatting.
It depends, really. Very rarely do I have more than 2 pieces on the go at one time. But I can get 4 done in a week, 5 done in a week.
I cannot.
Yeah. So, yeah, I structure. I'm, like, as you know, I'm very, very organised. So I'll put a screenshot of this up, but I've got a daily list. Yeah, I've got a daily list here of, it's called weekly work schedule, and it's purely art based. And I've got Monday AM, Monday PM, Tuesday AM, Tuesday PM, and before the week, I'll put in those slots, what artwork I'm going to work on through that week. And it's just something I've always done, and it's made me more productive because I've got to do that work. And if I don't do it the Monday, it rolls over into the Tuesday. So, yeah, that helps me not overload myself, and it helps me keep things manageable. And yeah, two pieces at the very most at the same time. Usually just the one though, for me.
For me, I'm the same as you, Yoni. I could have 5 or 6 open at any one time. But again, like I said, what I was saying to Callie earlier, I'm not very organised, and I wish I was more organised, because then I would make sure I finish certain things before I start on something new. Again, as a creative, you never know. You know, you could be working on a piece for a few days or whatever, but you never know when your next inspiration is going to come. I could have seen something on TV, I could see an advert, I could see whatever, and then all of a sudden that last piece I'm working on, unless obviously it's for a client or you're doing it for somebody, but if it's just kind of personal projects, all of a sudden that piece is just put to the wayside, and this new piece, because in my head I've got this idea of what I want to do with it, I start working on that. And then, I mean, I've got so many, I can't even tell you, there's so many pieces in my hard drive of artwork that I haven't completed, that at the time I was like, this is going to be, you know, the dog's bollocks, and I'm really happy with where it's going. And I kind of find
it's all Untitled.
Yeah, it is. I don't save anything until like the last minute, which is really bad. But you know, that's kind of, like I said, I'm so unorganised. My layers are all over the place, strokes all over the place. You know, if it's for a client, I try and tidy it up at the end. But I do find that. So, for example, if you're creating a footballer, once I've done the facial work and I've done, you know, the facial and the hair, and it looks really great, I can find the rest of the illustration really boring. Like to do the kit, to do the legs, to do the boots.
Process, isn't it? It's just a labour.
Yeah, exactly. It's because you are going to make it look like what it's meant to look like, no matter what. Yeah. But with the face, it's the hardest part to do, and the hair, and to get that unique personality into the face. So I find it. You know, I find that sometimes I achieve that, and I'm really proud of it. And then I'll go on to doing the rest of the kit, and then, like I said, something else will pop up, and I'll just never finish it. And again, I just wish I was more organised, and I wish I could sort of be a bit more like Dan. Sorry, could be a bit more like Dan.
The that's exactly the same as me though. Like, there's been times where I've done everything on the artwork, the piece of artwork I'm working on, and I'd rather start something new than finish the piece that I'm looking at, because what I've got left to do is just so boring and just little highlights here and there, and I know it's going to take me like half an hour. I'd rather start a completely new piece of art than complete that other one. It happens all the time.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the funny thing, isn't it? Because there are, as much as we love what we do, there are boring sides to the illustrations. There are tedious, long. I mean, as we've seen from Yoni drawing hairs on, honestly, I've got so much admiration for the amount of time it takes you to do that, because I just don't have the patience for it. And,
sometimes that's the most relaxing bit. And also, like, sometimes, like, I really enjoy. So sorry to like just steamroll in. I really enjoy doing stuff like hair, because it's one of those things where you got this reference picture, or even looking at each of us now, and hair actually just becomes blocks of 6 or 7 tones. So I love taking like this luxurious long hair and making it into 1 million individual strokes, because it doesn't look real, and so much of what I create is like realism. So to make hair look like this insane tapestry of interweaving lines, I love that bit of it. I hate it because it takes forever, but at the end, like, I love it.
Yeah, I get it. I get anxiety watching you do it.
Yeah, it's too much.
I
would love to have the patience.
Yeah, I'll just block brush it, highlights. That's it.
Yeah. The worst is when I'll start doing the hair, because I don't block out my time like Callie does. I can't do that. My brain wouldn't allow me to, because I'd be sitting there writing the spreadsheet going, yeah, but you could be drawing now. So I literally can't do that. But I'll start something at like, let's say I start at 8:30, and I'll go, okay, I want to finish the hair by 11, and then all of a sudden it's 4 p.m. and only half of the head's done, and I'm just like, I feel sick with stress.
Yeah.
I find that, do you not find that the hair, like, I find it's the hardest part to do out of everything.
Hands.
Because...
Well, yeah, it is hands. It is hands.
For me, well, yeah, I find that it depends. I'm talking from a portraits perspective, because obviously I do quite a lot of portraits. I find that the hair the hardest part to do, because it's just so long, and you want it to look like hair, and to get people's hairs brushed in different ways and different directions, and then you want to get the lighting correct, and it took me so many years to perfect what I would perceive as decent hair now.
No, I agree with you, and I think like one of the reasons why I went really hard into like drawing almost individual hairs is because I see people's work, and it's like often like vector based work, but even if it's not like something that has been taken down to its most intrinsic shapes, like like what you do, and then like what somebody like Stanley Chow does, or some of Dave Flanagan's stuff, where it's like 4 shapes making up a head of hair, which and because with that kind of stuff, and I think like Diverse Pixels, the poster behind you is probably similar. Like, I don't know how the fuck you guys do it, because I don't know how you because one of the things, and I was thinking about this when you were saying hair's so difficult, and one of the reasons why it's so important is because the rendering of the hair and the lighting of the hair is often what adds depth to the actual head. So like until you've done that bit, and I know a lot of people often avoid doing that because it's difficult. It looks 2-dimensional. They will never look like a 3-dimensional character. So that's one of the reasons why I think it's so difficult, but it's so important, is because it's literally one of the most important things to add depth to an image.
Do you know what? Yeah. What one of the things that helped me with my artwork, and it brings me back to what I was saying about what you learn in school. Like, my art teacher in high school was brilliant. Proper helped me with my artwork in terms of hair, facial expressions, everything. And she boiled it down to there's no specific thing on a face that you can point to and say that's what you see on a face. And what she meant by it was, if you look at hair, you can look at it and go, well, it's got all these strokes on, it's got all these lines on, it hasn't really, if you simplify it. It's got tones of darks and lights, and that's it. Every image I look at now, when I'm trying to recreate it, I look at it and I often tone it to black and white. I take the colour out of it.
Yeah.
I tone it to black and white and I go, where's it dark, where's it light? And I literally broad stroke dark and light parts of it, and I'll look back and it'll look like hair, and then all I need to do then is put me highlights in here and there and erase this bit, you know, extend that bit, and that's something that's in most of my artwork that you'll see, and that it's probably the best art tip I've ever had.
Yeah, it's a good point. Maybe I'll look at that going forward. Definitely.
I think that's like the black and white thing's a really good point, because somebody asked me once when I was talking through them about like my process, which is, it's not an uncommon process. It's quite old school, which is like the very traditional grid kind of method. Is I also like, I will really ramp the contrast up on an image. Often I'll put it in black and white, so that you can register where like the subtlest shadows are. Because I think, and that's what a lot of people have said. It's like, oh, how could you even see that bit was, that bit needed that deeper stroke? And it's like, well, because you just train your eye to look for these things. And I think one of the things that I got taught when we were studying art, I think it was in high school, but it might have been in the first year of college. I can't remember, that period of life is a little bit blurry. Is that you should just look at loads of images that you don't do anything with other than look at them. Just study contrast, study shadows, study colour, and like I think partly because of being a filmmaker as well, I study cinematography for that a lot as well, because it's obviously very exaggerated shadows and it's done purposefully for style often rather than specific realism. But I think that's definitely something that people should just do, is like look at a picture you're not even going to draw and just learn about how the shadows, how they fall off, how they gradiate, you know, how they shape around stuff, how that helps define a shape. Because I often have this weird thing, and it's similar to what you were just saying about hair. It's like often when I've drawn something, I'll just look at it and go, it's really weird that just that random collection of stuff I've put together looks like a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's really useful to look at something like that and just start to go like, what actually are the shapes interacting?
I'm going to ask you a question. Seeing as we're going to be getting these, well, it might be a bit difficult to answer, but I was just going to ask you what is your favourite piece and what is your worst piece of what you've created?
Yeah, I wanted to ask him the same thing. That's really good.
What I've created?
Yeah, your own specific artwork. Which is your favourite? Which is the worst? And then obviously we can get them here and here, wherever they are, so you can say but obviously it's a difficult one to. Mate, it might be it might be a bit easier to do your favourite, and I just wanted to kind of know the reasons why it's your favourite, maybe less so why it's not, you know, your worst piece, because obviously
it's fun. I don't really look at my work in best and worst. I do look at it in favourites though.
Yeah, like, or like even the one that you're proudest of.
Yeah. My favourite piece of artwork that I've created,
and I mean it from the perspective of what you like, not what the impact was on everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, what is your specific? It may have been a piece that only got 2 likes. Do you know what I mean?
It's either the LeBron James piece or the Bobby celebration kick. And I think the reason that they're my favourites is because they almost jump out the page, literally. They're both flying through mid-air. And I think in terms
of the LeBron one.
Yeah, me too.
Love it.
I think in terms of getting that effect of coming out of the page and being like Yoni said, like in his episode, like it's almost like a physical thing. Them two, for me, when I look at my work, and the Michael Jordan piece as well, actually the first one I've done, just the movement in them, the moments that they signify, you know, the gravity of the situation that was happening in each of them. Yeah, I just feel like them two are the most expressive in terms of now they look like they're actually going to jump off the page. I don't know why. I've got other pieces that I'm I've got more sentiment towards. But just in terms of favourites, they stand out for me. Yeah.
To say one of my favourites, just before you carry on, is the Pele one as well.
Yeah,
the Pele one's my favourite, man.
It's unbelievable,
and
it's not specifically a moment like the LeBron and the Firmino and Jordan one, but it's just so powerful, man. Like I just look at it and it's just like it really hits me. Maybe it's the colours and I don't know, but it's just I think it's absolutely phenomenal. Honestly,
nice one.
I love that one. Like I think it feels like it's soaked in like Brazilian heat.
Yeah,
which like I love. Like looking at it, like it feels like it's Sao Paulo in the 60s.
Yeah, it comes alive without actually being an action shot as such.
Yeah, it's like it's just a still portrait, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
In terms of my worst piece, it's probably something I haven't released. I done Ronaldinho not long ago, like a portrait piece with no lines. I hated it. Hated the outcome, and I posted it online. I put it up and then I deleted it, and then.
Well, now you can see both of them here, and.
Yeah, well, I haven't redone it. I was that upset by it.
Okay, should we do your quick fire questions?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's begin. Nike or Adidas?
Nike.
Nope. Mac or PC?
PC.
Photoshop or... Wait, what? PC?
I didn't stutter.
I know, but you said something wrong.
Yeah.
Photoshop or Illustrator?
Never used either.
Right. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Scone or scone?
Scone.
Family Guy or Simpsons?
Family Guy every day of the week.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Coke or Pepsi?
Pepsi.
Pepsi or Pepsi Max?
Pepsi Max.
What's better, the book or the movie?
Book.
Beer or wine?
Beer.
Night in or night out?
Night out.
Pirates or ninjas?
Pirates.
And then Carl's got a random one.
Yes, I do. Which is better? Doing a number 1 or doing a number 2? Which is a better relief?
What the did you just say?
He's got
when
kids.
You went to the toilet.
He's got kids.
Which one? Which is better? Which is which do you feel more? Oh,
there's only one answer.
You desperately got to go to number 1, or you desperately got to do a number 2.
Oh, if I was desperate to do both,
well, not at the same time, obviously.
Oh yeah, if I was desperate to do one of either them, it'd feel better having a number 1.
Yeah,
having a piss.
Yeah, it's
better than having sex.
So. Alright.
Honest to God.
Where'd you get this guy from, man?
Hope you enjoyed my interview. Like the video and subscribe to Untitled Artwork.